indicated to ask questions have already been given their numbers. I shall now invite the chairman of the Presidential Task Force, Mr. Boss Mustafa, to please address the nation. Thank you.
You have come again. Stand there. Honorable members of the Presidential Task Force, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press, let me once again welcome you most sincerely to the National Daily Briefing on COVID-19. And as usual, we shall be updating you on developments regarding our national response and also bring you up to speed on what to expect. The implementation of the lockdown order in Ogun, Lagos states, and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, is taking shape. We unveiled the guidelines to you yesterday and have started communicating to the security agencies and all those involved in the enforcement accordingly. The Presidential Task Force wishes to emphasize that this measure is not punitive, as the government is conscious of the well-being of all Nigerians. The COVID-19 is a potential danger to all of humanity and threatens our economy and national security. You will all understand, therefore, why we must at all times, take very difficult decisions in order not to disrupt the economy and particularly the supply of power to our homes. Government yesterday, as I informed you, has already exempted essential staff of companies in the upstream oil and gas sector from the restrictions and exempted further the movement of fertilizer and related items so that we can keep our agricultural economy working. This is all in order to facilitate availability of gas to fire the turbines that generate power for the supply in our homes, and also to ensure that our farmers have fertilizer and other necessary components as the farming season is about to begin. That underscores the intricate nature of decisions that we have taken and those that will be taken. As we continue to assess the readiness for containment and management, we recognize strongly the importance of synergy with the states. It is important that states, whether in the front line where cases have been reported or where cases have not been reported yet, to intensify the preparation of facilities that will help in the event of a surge. Training of personnel in the management of these facilities is also a critical factor to the success of our strategy. The Presidential Task Force shall intensify consultations with the governors and other state agencies to achieve the much-needed collaboration. In furtherance of this consultation, we are requesting that the subnational governments should provide at least a 300-bed facility, either a hotel or other facilities that are available to them, with options and graded in different categories, so that they provide a place where they can provide basic nursing and other required procedure before patients are moved into the isolation centers or the teaching hospitals or any other health facility. And those facilities, starting from 300 bed, should be expandable as the need arises. The commitment of our health workers is critical to the success of our national response. In this regard, the Presidential Task Force wishes to assure our frontline workers and those retired personnel we are mobilizing that adequate measures are being taken to protect them, knowing fully well the hazards associated with their job. In the interest of humanity and our nation, the Presidential Task Force appeals to every Nigerian to take this exercise very seriously by obeying all protocols and measures put in place. Staying alive is more important. I also appeal to leaders of our society, the VIPs, the religious leaders, the captains of industries, to comply with the rules of testing so that the spread of the virus does not spiral out of control. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in difficult times, and these difficult times require tough decisions. And we will continue to update you and give you basic information that will help in mobilizing Nigerians and putting them on the trajectory of realizing that we are the only people that can safeguard ourselves and also do all possible within our means to ensure that we curtail or flatten the curve of this pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, the following members of the Presidential Task Force shall elaborate in their reports to the nation for today. They are the Honorable Minister of Health, the DG Center for Disease Control, the Honorable Minister for Information and Culture, and any other minister that would have a critical requirement to speak from the podium or answer questions as the questions are thrown. I shall now yield the podium to the Honorable Minister of Health to report to you. Thank you.
The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Honorable Ministers here present, Directors and ladies and gentlemen of the press. As of today, 10 a.m., 2nd of April 2020, Nigeria has recorded 174 confirmed COVID-19 cases. 91 are in Lagos, 35 in the FCT, 14 in Osun, 8 in Oyo, 5 in Akwa Ibom, 4 each in Ogun, Edo, and Kaduna, 3 in Bauchi, 2 each in Enugu and Ekiti, and 1 each in Rivers and Benue states. Those discharged from hospital are still 9, but others are pending once their final tests are done. 2 fatalities are the only ones still on record, and these being cases with other serious pre-existing illnesses. As contact tracing and testing capacity are being ramped up, more and more cases will be found, and the number of new confirmed cases of COVID-19 is expected to rise initially. We also worry about persons, especially Nigerians, returning to the country through land borders, who run a higher risk of infection if they are with an infected person in a confined space for a long time, like transit in a crowded bus or a car. Therefore, it is advisable that all travelers postpone non-essential travel, whether by air or by land, and whether national or international. In this regard, all Nigerians are advised to remain where they are resident and to stay safe and obey the rules and the laws that are provided, except if they are returning home from a previously arranged journey or from a business trip or a vacation. With the expanded national case definition and the addition of 2 laboratories to the NCDC network of molecular diagnostic laboratories, national testing capacity has increased. Moreover, lockdown in high-burden states presents the advantage of reduced population mobility and leaves more people at home to be found during contact tracing. As I said, all this means that more people, more samples can be collected, can be tested more quickly, and the turnaround time is shorter, and it means that more cases will be discovered. With 71% of over presumed 6,000 more contacts now traced, the number confirmed may rise dramatically, but contact tracing will still be intensified to reduce the number of outstanding ones. We shall continue to expand isolation centers and prepare ICU units across the country for those who may have complications. We have also expanded bedding and intensive care space in Abuja, Gwagwalada, and have urged all states to do the same in their states, starting with tertiary hospitals. All facilities, including those where isolation, all facilities where isolation and treatment of coronavirus are to be conducted will be inspected before accreditation by a team of experts that has been put together as announced yesterday. The Office of National Security Advisor shall also be represented due to the national security implications. The facilities in Abuja are currently being inspected as I speak to you by the experts. I enjoin all states and facility managers to cooperate in the exercise because it will largely determine our success in containing the spread of the virus. Yesterday, I had a meeting with the Nigerian Medical Association leadership, and they came to offer their cooperation and also to mobilize their representatives to be able to support the national response to the coronavirus threat. We have urged them to invite retired members, particularly in Lagos and Abuja, to register and volunteer their service. In view of the prevailing global shortages of particular commodities like masks and protective gowns and even of ventilators, we are going to have conversations with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment to look for indigenous producers, indigenous manufacturers to try and support the effort to find more facilities and commodities that we are going to be using for protection and personal protection equipment. Thank you.
The Director General, NCDC.
Chair, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen of the press. Firstly, to thank you very much and to thank Nigerians for all the support that the teams have received over the last a few days. Nigerians have generally, across the country, been really showed their support for the teams in different ways, in whatever way they can. We also thank you for your understanding for the small inadequacies that we've had in certain aspects of the response, while promising to keep improving on all of that, specifically on the call center and on the speed with which we've issued out results. We've had the largest number of positive cases yesterday, but we had also the largest number of people tested ever yesterday. And we've made sure we've prioritized getting back the results to all the positives. There has been some delay in calling all the negatives, but we're working on that, and by the end of today, we should be all through with the backlog. So we're grateful for the support. The one area I'd like to talk on a little bit today is the work that we're doing from the federal government in supporting all the states in Nigeria. We currently have 15 rapid response teams supporting 15 states. It's the largest deployment of public health resources for an outbreak ever in our country. Unlike other outbreaks that are localized, even the Ebola outbreak was still Lagos and Port Harcourt. This time, every day we add a new state. Every single day we have to deploy a new team. It requires resources, people, logistics, efforts. This is a significant exercise, and we're assuring every state that we will continue to do everything necessary to support them to respond to these events that are unfolding in our country. We're not doing this on our own. Every single federal government agency has offered us support, people, vehicles. Together, we are deploying these resources to the states. We rapidly train, we bring them into the team. It forms one federal government team. Both National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, the National Health Insurance Scheme, the Medical Laboratory Council, everybody has supplied staff and resources with which we're deploying. However, this deployment will still not be possible without our partners. WHO is in the room, the Africa Field Epidemiology Network. Everybody has really come together to deploy to support the states across the country. We are building up on some investments that we have made over the last few years. Over the last few years, we've set up 22 public health emergency operation centers in the states. Our plan was to get it up to 37, so to cover every state but plus FCT. Unfortunately, we were not quite there when this outbreak struck. But this will also give us energy to reinvigorate our efforts, because it is within those EOCs at the state level that the response comes together. That is where the federal, state, and everybody, not just the public health forces, but the immigration, our security agencies, everybody comes together within the context of an EOC every day to define the response, identify gaps, fix those gaps, define the next strategy, and keep improving on the response. So those EOCs are important, and are the meeting space where the rapid response teams meet. Now, the expertise in these rapid response teams would not have been possible without months and years of training, support from the World Health Organization, the West Africa Health Organization, Public Health England, and many other partners. Now, every week, somebody is going out to build on a specific skill. And these are not just contact tracing. That's the most obvious one. It's supply chain management, laboratory deployment. There are all sorts of various skills that are required to keep a response like this moving. And it's like riding a bicycle. You can't afford to stop. If you stop for 1 minute, the bicycle falls. So the response has to keep going and keep moving forward every day. We solve problems, we move forward, we solve the next problem the next day, and we try our best to support every state in Nigeria to be able to respond. So today really is about celebrating these colleagues on the front lines. They really are going over and beyond the call of duty. Many of them work for 18 hours every day. We get sit reps sent to us. Some of those sit reps arrive in my inbox at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. that morning, because the next day they have to go out again. So from the federal government side, on behalf of the PTF, we are doing our best to support every state. Just yesterday, 5 new cases were announced in Akwa Ibom. This morning, a large team has already deployed to Akwa Ibom. As we speak, they must be halfway. It's not possible to fly very easily at the moment, especially if we need to do so rapidly. We need to collect supplies from the lab, to collect samples. We collect IPC materials, everything they need to respond. And by 10 a.m., they were already on their way to support Akwa Ibom State. So that's how the response is panning out. That's how we're supporting every state in Nigeria. Lagos has the biggest team, close to 50 people, a joint team from WHO, AFENET supporting them. The FCT has the second largest team, obviously because of the numbers of cases in these 2 states. So I want to assure every state in Nigeria, you're not alone. No matter what happens, we will support you to prevent, we will support you to respond, but we need to remember, Mr. President called on us to have one response across the country, one response led by the PTF, whether it's in Zamfara or Akwa Ibom, whether it's in Kwara or Adamawa, we have one coordinated response through which to respond to this global pandemic of which Nigeria is just a part of. Thank you very much.
The Minister of Information and Culture.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and gentlemen of the press. The spike in fake news is actually distracting our fight against COVID-19. And I think this is quite unhelpful. It's been trending on the social media that the equipment and aid that we receive from China, from Jack Ma, they've all been infected with the virus. This is not true. Also, I was quoted yesterday as having said that the PTF had distributed 5 billion naira to the most vulnerable people in the last 24 hours. That also is not correct. The whole idea of this daily briefing is to eliminate any disinformation or fake news, because here we give you the latest development on the fight against COVID-19, and there's absolutely no need to go elsewhere to source for any other information. Whatever any other person in the task force does, either by appearing on television, radio shows, or granting interview, is simply to amplify what we've given you here. So by being here, you get authentic information, real time, on the fight against COVID. Having said this, I want to once again thank you for your time and resources you've all devoted to informing and educating Nigerians on our resolute fight against COVID-19. Thank you very much.
The National Coordinator will now report.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My own will be quite brief. I would like to provide additional clarity with regards to the issue of markets, which I understand is not very clear with the public. So the decision of the PTF is that satellite markets will operate every other day for 4 hours a day, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This does not refer to the main markets that are already closed, and neither does it refer to markets that have been closed by local authorities. We do not expect them to open. But for markets that supply neighborhoods, we would allow them to operate for just 4 hours a day, every other day. Having said this, I need to re-emphasize again to shop owners, particularly those operating supermarkets and food stores, that they are allowed to operate only if they are dealing with food and perishable items, including pharmaceuticals as well. We also expect them to respect the self-distancing rules, to avoid mass gatherings, and to make sure that they have available equipment for measuring body temperature and also sanitizing hands. If we will be having regular inspection of their premises, and stores that repeatedly break these rules will be asked to close. Thank you very much.
That concludes the first part, the reports. We'll now go into the question and answer session. We have two tranches of questions, first 7, followed by responses, and then another 7. Please bear in mind that, the Honorable Minister of Environment will give us his report before we go into the question and answer session.
Thank you. The SGF, Honorable Ministers, Press, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. From the Federal Ministry of Environment, just a quick update on 2 issues. One, on personnel. Second, equipment, and of course, the ongoing decontamination and disinfection we started yesterday. On the personnel side, we are currently assembling about 3,000 additional community volunteers that can be trained quickly in terms of advocacy at the grassroots, counseling and advices as appropriate, especially in terms of hygiene, sanitation. Also, we have alerted some of our retired personnel that to be on the lookout. If there is need, we'll again, just like the Minister of Health is doing, we'll also reach out to them and see who we can get in to come and help in this respect. As for the decontamination we started yesterday, I can report back to you areas that have been completed up to this point. The Federal Secretariat, Phase 1 and 2, Head of Service, Office of the Secretary to the Government, all Secretariat, and also Federal Ministry of Youth and Sport, Ministry of Environment, Works and Housing, Science and Technology, Central Bank, NNPC, which is ongoing currently, Office of Ecological Fund, and also currently Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs is ongoing. Also, I'll be happy to report that we have acquired additional trucks. This time we have expanded our collaboration with the police. I spoke with the IG this afternoon, and he graciously released 10 specialized trucks that we can use for the fumigation. Another agency has also released 1 truck, and we intend to look at any other agency, military or paramilitary, that have some of these trucks that we can acquire, which will make the disinfection and fumigation, decontamination faster. So this is where we are as of this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. We shall now go into the question and answer session. We'll take in successive order questions 1 to 7. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, the SGF, honorable ministers, and my colleagues. My name is Rahila Lassa. I report for Voice of Nigeria. Most of my questions here are feedback from the audience. The first set is sent in from Kaduna State, and the person says, why is the NCDC boss not wearing mask while others are wearing mask, and who is supposed to wear the mask? It continues. The number of new cases is increasing, and the lockdown is being relaxed continuously. Is it not more risky that this could promote the spread of the virus, more so that contacts of some index cases are still being traced? 2, how much have banks contributed? How much have individuals contributed so far? Are the billions of naira donations being received by government, or the committee by any alert, or there is politics of donation, as in pledge in public and fail to redeem the pledge privately. And the next one says there are video clips going around the social media of security agents forcing people, even those sitting outside their homes, to go in. And the complaint is there is no light. So they are asking if there is going to be palliative for them. Maybe the SGF could talk to the power boss if they could provide, make electricity available to people, and then maybe at a subsidized rate. Okay. The next one is, government discourages gathering. Why sharing money rather than depositing via account number of beneficiaries by the Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs? Secondly, how can the Honorable Minister account for this money with proper and approved data from government? And then the last one, someone says, I want to know how and what to do if someone or a group of persons want to donate relief materials to ease the burden of the COVID-19 pandemic on the government. And are there approved places where hospital equipment can be bought? The last one says, are banks also going to operate? Thank you.
Before we take the next question, please be reminded that you make your questions as compact as possible, maximum 2 questions per person, and don't repeat what others have already said. Thank you.
Good afternoon to the task force and Nigerians at home. My name is Mitaire Ikben of the NTA. My colleague has already asked a basket of questions, so let me just seek clarification for the task force on this. Some parts of the FCT today seem to be bubbling as residents seem to be abusing the leverage given by the task force or the window of opportunity for shops selling foodstuff to open between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Now, we want to ask, if I'm staying in the Federal Capital Territory, if I stay in Apo, for instance, and I feel foodstuff will be affordable in a place like Karshi, should I be traversing that long distance to go and make that purchase, or to shop in my locality or immediate vicinity? I think we need to clarify that. Or let's say if I stay in Lagos and I'm in Ipaja, do I need to move to Yaba to go and get purchase foodstuff? I think we need to clarify that. And again, there are parts of the Federal Capital Territory, some far-flung communities in Kuje, for instance, that, it seems as if life is still normal. It seems as if there is no lockdown. So I want to ask what the task force is doing, especially with relation to strengthening the enforcement as it borders on strategy and deployment of personnel to the grassroots of the affected states to enforce the lockdown. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sirs. Good afternoon, man, and my colleagues. Sir, I would like to speak in Yoruba, and I will take the audience of the Minister of Interior, person of Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, to answer this question in Yoruba, sir. Ìbéèrè mi àkọ́kọ́ ni wípé kí ni orúkọ tèmi ni Abiodun Oloyedepopola láti ilé-iṣẹ́ akéde Nigeria Voice of Nigeria ní ẹ̀ka èdè Yorùbá, àti wípé àwọn ìbéèrè tí mo fẹ́ béèrè yìí ó jẹ́ àwọn ìbéèrè èyí tí wọ́n ń béèrè àwọn olùfẹ́ wa tó ń béèrè pàtàkì jùlọ láti ilẹ̀ òkèèrè òun ló ṣe jẹ́ kí n fẹ́ béèrè ní èdè Yorùbá kí ẹ bá lè dá wa lóhùn dáadáa. Ìbéèrè àkọ́kọ́ ni nípa ti ìlú Èjìgbò ní ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀ṣun. A rí pé àwọn èèyàn lo àbáwọlé orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà láti kó àrùn yìí wọlé láti orí ilẹ̀. A dẹ̀ rí pé àwọn àlékún tí dé báyìí àwọn èèyàn tó ní àrùn yìí láti inú ìlú Èjìgbò. Kí ni iṣẹ́, kí ni ìlépa ìjọba orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà láti rí wípé àdínkù dé bá àwọn èèyàn tó ń gba ẹnu bodè wa wọlé pẹ̀lú àrùn yìí, pàtàkì jùlọ ní ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀ṣun? Ẹni tó béèrè ìbéèrè yìí àti ìlú Amẹ́ríkà ló ti tẹ ìwé ìránṣẹ́ sí mi. Èkejì ni wípé kí ni àwọn nǹkan tí ìjọba ní fún àwọn tó jẹ́ pé ó yàtọ̀ sí àwọn tó kù díẹ̀ káàtó láwùjọ, àwọn bíi àwọn tó wa ọkọ̀ láti fi jẹun, àwọn tó jẹ́ wípé wọn ò níṣẹ́ míì bí iṣẹ́ ìjọba tó jẹ́ pé ìparí oṣù ni wọ́n ń gba owó, àti àwọn míì bẹ́ẹ̀ bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. Kí ni èròǹgbà tí ìjọba ń gbèrò láti rí pé àlékún náà dé bá wọn bó ṣe wà ní ilé, àti wípé àwọn ọlọ́pàá kí ni ohun tí à ń ṣe láti rí wípé wọn ò fìyà jẹ àwọn ará ìlú bí wọ́n ṣe fẹ́, torí pé ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ là ń rí láwùjọ tó yẹ pé wọ́n kàn ń na àwọn aláìlú bó ṣe wù wọ́n ni, nítorí pé kí ni wọ́n ní pé COVID-19 wà níta. Ẹ ṣeun. Thank you very much, sir.
Good afternoon, SJF. Good afternoon, honorable ministers. My name is Musa Aminu Dambo. I will ask the question in Hausa language. The first question is go to the SGF. Akwai tambaya da ta fito daga jihar Kano, inda jiya cikin bayaninka ka bayyana cewa gwamnatin tarayya za ta raba ton 70,000 na abinci ga al'umma. Mai tambaya ko kuma masu tambaya suna bukatan su ji matakan da za a dauka domin ganin ya kai ga al'umma musamman a matakin karkara. Sai tambaya ta biyu zuwa ga ministan muhalli, inda aka yi tambaya daga jihar Kaduna. Mai tambaya ya yi tambaya akan cewa jiya an fara yin feshi a Abuja. Shin wani matakai gwamnatin tarayya karkashin ma'aikatar muhalli take dauka domin ganin abin ya kai ga sauran jihohi musamman mutane a matakin karkara?
Honorable Ministers, my colleagues, my name is Amaka Ode. I report for Arise News, and no, I am not going to speak in Igbo. Well, it's a good thing that the Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs is here, because we want to say well done to the task force, and you in particular, because we saw the pictures online yesterday. But I need a follow-up really in terms of your data as to who is getting these palliatives. Are we sticking to the 2.6 million households that you said your data already captured, or how many other Nigerians have you included in this new palliatives that you're distributing? And the next question will be for the Honorable Minister of Health as well as the DG of the NCDC. Well, it's more of good news, and we need clarifications on certain things. Well, we've seen 174 confirmed cases in Nigeria, but thankfully only 2 fatalities. And the question is, yes, it's cheering news, but are there any particular reasons we can adduce to the low fatality rate in the country? And is there anything that Nigerians at home who probably have not been tested but feel some sort of symptoms that might not be COVID, but that they can do really to just keep their health up? Really, thank you.
Good afternoon, members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. I have some couple of questions, but I'll try as much as possible to make them compact here. Honorable Minister of Information, sir, this first question is for you. Oh, he's not here. Okay, I can. The question I want to ask is, when he came out, he did talk about the issue of fake news affecting the fight against COVID-19. I would also want him to respond to a report by a Twitter user saying that a high-risk member of the government has passed on as a result of COVID-19. I would want him to respond to that. Then secondly, I also want to ask the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. Madam, newspapers were awash today by reports from NGO asking for transparency in the handling of the money from captives of industries and corporate bodies. What is your reaction to this? I also want to ask that there are allegations of selective care for COVID-19 patients that preferential treatment is being given to high-profile patients, especially in Lagos Center in Yaba. We had a report yesterday on our station AIT where a man whose wife is COVID-19 positive was screaming out his frustration, and it was not an isolated incident. Can you respond to this? Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, sirs. My name is Friday Okerigbe. I'm a reporter with Channels TV. My first question, I would appreciate it if the Honorable Minister of Interior can provide an answer to it. It has to do with the cases that are reported or that were reported in Osun State. We have a report that most of them are those returnees from Ivory Coast. And I wonder why we should have returnees from Ivory Coast if our land borders are actually closed. Then the second question, I will appreciate if the NCDC boss will help us to provide answer to that. On Tuesday, you told us here that we're tracing about 5,000 contacts. I would like to know how many contacts so far have been traced from this estimate that you give to us. Thank you.
With that, we have come to the end of the first wave of questions. We will be responding in the following order. The Minister of Health, followed by the NCDC Director General, the Minister of Interior, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, the National Coordinator, and finally, the SGF. The Minister of Health, please.
The questions that came out here are in the public health arena. And so I invite Dr. Chikwe, CDC, to come and answer the questions.
Thank you, Honorable Minister of Health. Firstly, I'll go through the questions and I'll come back to the question on mass at the end. Firstly, the reasons for the low case fatality ratio at the moment is too early to talk about anything being low or high. Where you can see the numbers from other countries, we're at just under 200 cases. There are still cases in our treatment centers. We've only discharged less than 10 patients. So it's too early to try and conclude that the case fatality ratio is low, not to talk about the reasons for its being low. So the message really is for everyone to keep pushing on the care provided, early identification, bring them into care. Let's provide the best treatment possible and hope that we can keep those numbers as low as they are. The question on what to do to keep up your health during this period of staying at home. I agree. There's no scientific answer to that. We can all come up with ways to exercise within our compounds, vary the work that we do. So in this case, you are actually more the experts than we are. But yes, we have to find a way of keeping healthy. And I know the circumstances in which many Nigerians live make this a little bit difficult. But just take this as a period of sacrifice for our country and for long-term health, growth, and sustainability. There's a question about preferential care to high-profile patients in our treatment centers. This is just simply not true. Everyone in the treatment center, both in Lagos and Abuja, is getting the same level of care. If there are any variances, I will be very surprised. But the healthcare workers are really working very hard to make sure everyone is supported through their period of care. There are some adjustments that are being made in the treatment centers to make this period of isolation and treatment a bit more comfortable. Thankfully, most of our patients have mild symptoms, which makes it very difficult sometimes to remain on treatment and isolation. So if you have a very severe medical condition, there's no time to worry about whether you're in a room for 14 days. But when you're physically well but still infectious, because we repeat the sampling, it's a little bit difficult for that individual to stay in a room So we've really urged them to use their phones and other means of communication to stay in touch with their families and friends. And now some arrangements are being made for very careful, allowing them to come out to the fresh air under controlled circumstances so that they can, just continue life and bear this period for a few more days. Until then, they test negative. Because there's no defined period of isolation when you're in hospital. You just have to stay until your test turns negative. So it's a very challenging period. And we call on all the family members, friends of these individuals to stay in touch with them, to keep encouraging them through this period. On our contacts, we have traced and are monitoring 71% of all of them. By the end of today, that percentage will increase. This is really what the period, these 2 weeks are for, to enable people move around a lot easier. Lagos has really been transformational over the last few days. The teams are able to move incredibly quickly across Lagos to make sure they monitor all these contacts. So we're 71% of all those listed are currently in contact with us. The numbers are going down. The early patients, the early cases had large number of contacts because many of them were in airlines, and we had to basically contact everyone in that flight when they came back. But everyone being identified now as a case has 30, maybe max 40 contacts. So the number of contacts per confirmed case is reducing, because we no longer have people that have been exposed to a plane in the most recent cases. On the final question around masks, at the moment we don't have a national policy on wearing masks. When we do get to that, we will announce that to the country. But at the moment, everyone is advised to carry out an individual risk assessment. But having said that, the most important people that we need to keep as many masks as possible for are healthcare workers. Our healthcare workers are the most at risk, and my responsibility as the leader of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control is to work with all our partners, all our friends, all our donors to make sure that every single mask in the country that we have available to us is kept for healthcare workers so that they can work safely to keep the rest of us safe. Having said that, it's everybody's right to procure masks, to use them as they deem fit, to control their own health and limit their exposure, especially people, many people in this room that have to be out every day. Every other person in Abuja is at home because they have been instructed to stay at home. So many of us in this room have to be out because you have to keep walking. And then everyone can make that individual decision on whether to wear a mask or not. So I hope that clarifies that, and I hope not to come back to this specific question. Let's focus on questions that relate to the response itself. Thank you.
Minister of Interior.
Well, for the whole great Nigerians, it's nice having the opportunity to talk to you all. Thank you. Ìbéèrè àkọ́kọ́ tí Abiodun ti Von tó ní ká sọ̀rọ̀ lé lórí ó ní ọ̀rọ̀ àwọn Èjìgbò. Ìpè báwo ló tiẹ̀ ṣe jẹ́ tí àwọn Èjìgbò tó wà l'Abidjan náà ṣe wọlé sí Nàìjíríà nígbà tá a sọ pé a ti ṣí ọ̀nà. Àkọ́kọ́ máa bẹ̀rẹ̀ pẹ̀lú òwe Yorùbá kan ni. Wọ́n ní òkùnkùn ò ní kùn ó kó ní ó má mọ́nú. Wọ́n tí ilẹ̀ bá dẹ̀ ṣú, wọ́n ní ìyáálé amóye ọmọ ẹ̀. The English of those two proverbs is simple, if I must translate it. The home is the refuge of man. And if you take that, well, Yorùbá náà ní kí n sọ. Tá a bá mọ̀ pé ilé làbọ̀ sinmi oko bí n ṣe sọ ayé wa pé a ṣòro kí orílẹ̀-èdè kan kó sọ pé kí àwọn ọmọ orílẹ̀-èdè òun kó má wọnú ìlú òun, kò sí òfin tẹ́ ẹ lè ṣe. Gbogbo òfin ilé ayé ló sọ wípé kò ní bójú mu kí orílẹ̀-èdè kó ta ọmọ ẹ̀ sọnù. Bí ó tilẹ̀ jẹ́ bá àkókò tá a wà yìí, ó jẹ́ àkókò tí ó jẹ́ ẹlẹ́gẹ́, tí ó dẹ̀ nira. Àní ṣàìsojúṣe wa fún àwọn ọmọ orílẹ̀-èdè wa, pàápàá jùlọ àwọn tó máa wọ ọkọ̀ ọlẹ̀ wọlé. Ṣùgbọ́n nǹkan tá a gbé kalẹ̀ rèé, ẹnikẹ́ni tó bá fẹ́ wọlé láti àwọn ibodè ilẹ̀ tí ó wà, ó láti wà ní ìpamọ́ àpàpàǹdodo. Eléyìí ò ń ṣe self isolation, ìpamọ́ àpàpàǹdodo tí ìjọba máa pèsè kí a tó jẹ́ kán wọlé, kí a tó gbà wọ́n láàyè. A bá ìjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Ògùn àti ìjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Èkó, a bá wọn sọ̀rọ̀ torí àwọn ìpínlẹ̀ méjì yìí ni wọ́n ní ibodè tó máa gbà wọlé. Ìjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Èkó ó lóun máa kó àwọn tó fẹ́ wọlé lọ́dọ̀ òun máa kó wọn sí ibi tí wọ́n ti ń ráyè jáde fún oye ọjọ́ tí ìjọba kalẹ̀, ọjọ́ 14. Ìjọba Ògùn ó lóun á gbà wọn wọlé. Wọ́n gbà tán dé ọ̀dọ̀ ìjọba Ògùn, ó rí i pé wọn ò ń ṣe ọmọ ìpínlẹ̀ òun. Ó wá pe olórí ìjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀ṣun. Olórí ìjọba ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀ṣun pẹ̀lú òye tí ó ní lórí ojúṣe rẹ̀ fún àwọn ọmọ ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀ṣun, ó gbà wọ́n, ó sì kó wọn sí ìpamọ́ ní ìpínlẹ̀ Ọ̀ṣun. Ibẹ̀ ni wọ́n ti ṣe gbogbo àyẹ̀wò tí ó fi hàn yí pé àwọn tí wọ́n ti gbé jáde yìí wọ́n ti ní àrùn COVID-19. Mi ò mọ Yorùbá COVID-19, àjàkálẹ̀ àrùn tí gbogbo wa ń bá yìí, gbogbo wọn ti ní COVID-19 náà ń pè. Bí yẹn ṣe lọ nìyẹn. Tó má lè ti lè fi wọ́n sí pa wọn tó ń fi wọ́n sí yìí, wọn ò lè kó àrùn yìí bá aráàlú. Gbogbo ohun tíjọba ní ló fi ń ṣọ́ wọn níbi tí wọ́n wà lọ́wọ́ àti lẹ́sẹ̀, pẹ̀lú ìrànlọ́wọ́ àwọn àjọ tá a ti gbé kalẹ̀ láti ṣe àbẹ̀wò wọn ká dẹ̀ rí pé wọn ò kó àrùn yìí ran ẹlòmíì. Ẹni kí la ń ṣe sí àwọn tí wọ́n ń rí tán mi ò fẹ́ pè wọ́n ní alágbe, àwọn tó jẹ́ pé iṣẹ́ òòjọ́ náà ń ṣe. Ẹni kí la ń ṣe fún wọn? Kò ń ṣe ibi iṣẹ́ tèmi wà ló mójútó, ṣùgbọ́n mo gbọ́ tí olùdarí ètò àánú àti ìrànlọ́wọ́ fún àwọn aráàlú tó sọ fún wa bóun ṣe ń ṣe àwọn ètò yìí. Mo dẹ̀ mọ̀ yí pé wọ́n ń ṣojúṣe wọn fún àwọn èèyàn tí wọ́n máa ní ìpalára lórí bí a ṣe ṣe àwọn agbègbè kan ní orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà, agbègbè bíi Abuja, Èkó àti Ògùn. Abíọ́dún ní ká sọ̀rọ̀ lórí ẹ̀tọ́ àwọn ọmọ ènìyàn. Ó dá mi lójú wípé púpọ̀ nínú àwọn agbófinró wa náà ń ṣojúṣe wọn tán dẹ̀ ń fún àwọn ènìyàn ní ẹ̀tọ́ wọn lórí ètò ìséde tí ààrẹ wa pàṣẹ tí ó gbádẹ̀ mójútó. Ṣùgbọ́n a lè ṣaláìrí kùdìẹ̀kudiẹ àti àwọn aláṣejù. Olórí àwọn ọlọ́pàá ti fi òtélé ipe ọlọ́pàá kí ọlọ́pàá, agbófinró kí agbófinró tó bá kọjá ààlà lórí àwọn ọmọ Nàìjíríà, wọ́n máa fi mú ẹ̀dán ni. Ìmídẹ̀ gbà pé èèyàn ti sọ̀rọ̀ nípa ẹ̀tọ́ àwọn ọmọ ènìyàn tí gbogbo wa mú ní ọ̀kúnkúndùn. The question in English is, why should there be returnees, or why should there be entry into the nation from the land border? I've said it in Yoruba, I'm just repeating it in English. It's simple. Every citizen of any nation has that right. It's fundamental to return to his fatherland whenever he or she wishes, regardless of the situation, even at war. Yes, depending on the characteristics of such a returnee, he could be picked up based on his record and detained. And in this instance, the arrangement made by NCDC and all other agencies involved is to isolate such returnee. We have even signed into an international treaty that says no human being is stateless. We are not even talking about those who are accredited nationals of Nigeria. We are saying by our own admission and commitment, we do not believe any human being is stateless. So those who hitherto were referred to as stateless citizens or stateless personalities are no longer even so identified or recognized in Nigeria. Every human being must be from a nation. If that is the case, it's difficult for us to abdicate our responsibility to our nationals who return by land border. When they get to our land borders, what the accredited officials of state, immigration officials in this instance, what they do is to first of all determine that they are Nigerians. From their travel document, from their physical appearance, and from their claims. Once the issue of their citizenship is determined, governments are contacted, particularly at the border level, to find out if they could accommodate them in their isolation centers. So I am here advising all governments, all the subnational authorities at the land border area of Nigeria to rapidly develop capacity to accommodate and isolate this type of people, which also was done in this instance by the government of Ogun and the government of Lagos. Lagos accommodated about less than 20 of such returnees who are students in Benin Republic. Lagos accommodated them in an isolation center. And I want to believe, because we've not had anything from that center, there has not been any challenge from there. But Ogun government took charge of those from Abuja who are largely from Ejigbo, accommodated them for a while and contacted their home governor or government. And that was how they were moved under cover and protection to an isolation center in Osun. And it is from there that the discoveries we are reading about came from. And appropriate action has been taken to ensure that they do not interact with any of the citizens who are not suspected of having the virus. So, in compliance with international treaty and law, we cannot deny our citizens entry to our nation. If you do that, it will be embarrassing and it will not speak well of our nation. And I want to even assume that the press will be the force to antagonize us. So, but appropriate guideline, I must not fail to add this. Appropriate guideline will be issued by the PTF on the modalities of having returnees here, not just keeping them in isolation for a period of time, which will be 14 days. They might have to be responsible for some few things that will have to accompany it. On this, I submit. I thank you.
Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, followed by the Honorable Minister of Environment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, distinguished colleagues, members of the media. Let me start with the first question on why we did not why we did disbursements where we have a lot of crowd. Well, some of these things are very inevitable. We tried as much as possible to see that we take into consideration the social distancing policy. If you watch that video, if you were there, you see that the people that were brought in to start to do the disbursements, they were spaced. They were spaced. But people outside that might not be even the beneficiaries decided to be there to be onlookers. And I want to say here that this stay-at-home policy that I was giving, when I went to Kwali yesterday, most people were just moving about doing their normal businesses. So, Mr. Chairman, I think this is the point where we really have to enforce this stay-at-home, directive. Many people did not even, it didn't look like they are aware that there's this stay-at-home policy. So there are issues that we really, scenarios that we really cannot, avoid. But henceforth, we'll try to see how we put in measures to avert that. And the question around how many people we have in the social register or how many people we are capturing in the cash transfer, this is a program that has been on for 4 years. It has been there since 2016. And the national register, as we have, the National Social Register as at 31st March 2020, is made up of 11,045,537 poor and vulnerable people in 35 states and 453 local government areas across the country. I think I have given that statistics earlier on in this briefing. And now, currently, what we have, what the beneficiaries that we give this cash transfer to are 2.6 million people. In FCT, we have 5,982 households. In Nasarawa State, we have 8,271 households. Katsina has 6,723 households. And Anambra State have 1,357 households. And the household composition by the general standard is 6 persons per household. We are thinking of expanding the register. We are in talks with the UN Social Protection Donor Group to see how the register can be rapidly expanded to cover additional 1 million households. But we have 11.4 million households in the register that are ready for this intervention. And the way these people are captured really is by community engagement. We go into the community, we reach to the community leaders, the opinion leaders in that community, religious leaders. They are the ones that decide which family falls within that category of poor and vulnerable household. And that is what we use. So there's really transparency and accountability in these regards. This is what I can say on that. I think these are the questions raised, but let me use this opportunity to also please appeal to our citizens to really desist from, spreading this fake and very malicious news around. Yesterday, we just started the program of this cash transfer, and as I mentioned earlier, we have different states with the numbers, and all over the country. No section of this country is going to be marginalized. This is a national program. It is irrespective of religion or political affiliation. It's a program that has been on. Nobody is going to be shortchanged. Let us be nationalistic in these very trying moments of our lives. Everybody is committed to this work. So please, everyone should contribute his own quota in seeing that we're able to go through, get through this pandemic that we're all in. Thank you very much.
Honorable Minister of Environment.
The question as to whether other cities and villages will be decontaminated, disinfected, even though it was asked in Hausa, I will just answer and then just say a word or two in Hausa. Well, as I said yesterday, we are looking at the situation, we'll assess and analyze. And yesterday I said danger-prone zones are the places where we started, where there is prevalence of a lot of people or prevalence of the disease, the infection. Like Lagos, Abuja, disinfection is ongoing because we have more cases in these areas. We are reviewing, watching the situation. We are hoping we don't need to disinfect or decontaminate all the cities and villages, because that means then we have a lot of infection everywhere. So that's not the case. We'll be watching, and where we need to, we will go and do that. Tambayan da aka yi ɗazun shine kamar yanzu yadda ake feshi a nan Abuja, ko haka za a yi a sauran birane da karkara a waɗansu gurare. Tambayan daga Kaduna ne. To, abin da muke fata shine kar Allah kai mu lokacin da za a ce sai mun feshe kowane birni ko kuma kowane ƙauye. In haka ya faru kenan kaman ko ina da akwai cutar kenan. Ita wannan cutan in ba an kai ta guri ba, ko wani da yake da shi a wani guri ya je can, ko wani daga can ya je ya ɗauka ya kai, ba yawo take yi a iska na tsawon lokaci da za ta je daga wani gari zuwa wani gari ba. Saboda haka muna sa ido muna dubawa, in bukata ta taso na aife shi a wani guri za a yi. Saboda haka masu tambaya daga Kaduna shine, idan har wannan bukatan ta taso, ina tabbatar muku za mu duro gurin nan, za mu feshe wurin, amma ba ma fatan haka ya kasance. Muna dai sa ido mu gani me zai kasance in Allah yadda. Na gode.
The National Coordinator.
Thank you. I believe I had two questions. The first one has to do with how far do you travel to get food? Well, we expect people to be sensible. You're not going to traverse the whole of the FCT just in order to go and buy a yam in a market. So the purpose of the lockdown is to ensure that people stay at home and keep safe distances so that we can interrupt the transmission of the virus. That's why we are allowing neighborhood markets to open, and we are allowing the big shops and malls to open, but for shorter periods of time. We don't expect people to travel long distances in order to obtain food. We expect that there will be markets that will sell food or shops that will sell food, groceries, etc., close to them. I would like to appeal to the public, because this is a joint effort. It's not just government alone. It's a joint effort. Unless we come together and own this as a responsibility, we will not be able to get on top of the epidemic. So please cooperate with us. At the same time, we are also appealing to the security agencies to understand both the restrictions as well as the exemptions that we have put in terms of the lockdown. The second question had to do with handling of funds. I believe I have already answered this question yesterday. The private sector has a separate fund which is run through the Coalition Against Coronavirus Disease. That's where you get most of the announcements. This person has given $1 billion, this person has given, etc. And this is a separate account. It has nothing to do with government, and the money will not come to government. We appreciate the effort of the private sector in helping us, and they will be providing us with commodities. But the money that they are currently collecting will not come to government. It's a separate bank account. There's also a separate account run through the UN system that involves engagement with other UN agencies as well as international donors. They are running that fund separately, and they will do their own procurement process separately. The government accounts will continue to run in line with normal governance processes and transparency, but we will not be mixing funds together, and we have nothing to do with the money that is being collected by the private sector. Thank you.
The chairman, PTF.
I think let me add my voice to the issues of donation so that we can put pay to the entire issues. Let me inform the nation that so far the Presidential Task Force has not received any donation directly in terms of cash for this exercise. We have received donation of material, particularly the ones that came from Jack Ma, the Chinese billionaire, and that has adequately been distributed by the Nigerian Center for Disease Control. In terms of monetary contribution, the national coordinator has just informed you. There are different organizations and individuals that are pioneering their own efforts. So far, I know of 4 different efforts. The first is the one that is being driven by the central bank and the corporate organizations, jointly being handled by the governor of the central bank and Alhaji Aliko Dangote. They have spoken to the press. I want to make a copy of the press release that was done by the governor of the central bank in Lagos about a week ago, where they outline how they will raise their funds, the committees that they have established, starting with the steering committee, which they have invited me to chair. They have a funding committee, they have an operation committee, and they have a technical committee. They are going to run, fund, execute projects, buy equipment, all in furtherance of fighting the coronavirus. At the end of their exercise, they have explained in their document that they would appoint an accounting firm that would undertake an audit of their exercise and make a report to the donors for the purposes of accountability and transparency. Government does not have control of those funds. The Presidential Task Force does not have control of those funds. The second effort is the one initiated by the NMPC, which involves players in the upstream, the middle stream, and the downstream levels of the oil and gas industry. They also have their own processes. They have their governance culture and rules. They will raise their funds. They will liaise with the PTF in the same manner that the Central Bank and the Corporate World Initiative is liaising with us. They will ask for locations. They will ask for the list of equipment. We will supply them. They will raise their funds. They will administer their funds. And at the end of the day, they will render accounts to the people that have donated to this particular enterprise. Government does not have control of this particular endeavor. The third is the one that is being driven by the United Nations family. We do not have control over it. They will raise their funds from their home governments, from their donor agencies and partners. They will decide, based on our needs assessment, the kind of equipment, the kind of capacity building, the kind of products and facilities that we require. They would administer their funds. They would account to their donors. So government does not have control over that. The fourth source of funding is what government will put into the coronavirus engagement. I have just received a letter from the Accountant General informing us of the account that has just been opened yesterday. So obviously no funds have gone into any account. Hopefully in the coming days, we'll receive funding for the work of the Presidential Task Force in terms of the different components of the multilateral or multi-sectoral engagement. That is the one that government would have control over, and at the end of the enterprise, we would account for it. So I want clarity on this so that we don't come back to this question again as to what funds have been received and what is the account. The three first sources I explained are quite distinct. They are operating on their own. We do not have control over it. All we do is to provide them with our needs and our requirements. They procure through their procurement processes. And most of the major companies that are involved have got their own governance culture. They've got their own procurement processes that is not subjected to the procurement process of government. So I hope that is very, very clear now. Tomorrow we should not have a question as to which account has been opened, who is controlling it, and where have the funds gone. I took this length of time to elaborate on it so that we have clarity. We have control over only one account, and the account was only opened yesterday. I got the letter today. Obviously, no transaction has taken place in respect of that account. Somebody asked a question with regards to the problem that we're having in the power sector. Even before COVID-19, we've had some epileptic supply of power. And that is attributable to so many factors within the power network system. One is an inadequate supply of gas to power the turbines. Two, there has been a major challenge as to whether the discos are able to lift and distribute adequately to the people. There have been issues of even tariff. If you remember very, very clearly, just a couple of days ago, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission had to suspend the issue of tariff. That has been a constant battle in the last couple of years as to whether our tariff regime is adequate, enough, and feasible for implementation right now, considering other costs that are related to the power system. So it is not COVID-19 that is creating that problem. We have had the problem before we got where we are. But you remember yesterday, I did say in my statement that the president had to even grant an exemption to allow for movement of the upstream sector of our power and gas system, so that production can continue to enable us supply gas to these stations for them to power the turbines, so that there is adequate supply of electricity even in the midst of the lockdown. I know there are a lot of inconveniences, but our appeal to Nigerians is that we are confronted with so many challenges at the same time, and we need to bear. I know the spirit of every Nigerian is a resilient spirit. It's a very strong spirit of endurance. My appeal to our countrymen and women is that we should continue to be patient and endure for this just short while of period while we get out of the woods. The issue of relaxation of the lockdown, I think it was the NTA chap that asked that. I don't think the protocol we provided yesterday has relaxed anything. As a matter of fact, it has further reinforced the restrictions that have been put in place. And according to Mr. President in his broadcast, he's quite categorical about these restrictions. And that was why he signed the quarantine declaration, describing that there will be cessation of movement in these three locations within a period of 14 days. It's very clear. All we tried to do was to provide for the exceptions with clarity because of the feedback we got that even some of you that were exempted clearly as members of the media or the information and telecommunication family had difficulties getting to your places of work. So we wanted to bring some clarity to it. Things and restrictions that have been put in place by the governor of Lagos, by the governor of Ogun, and by the minister of the Federal Capital Territory remain in place. The markets we were referring to are the satellite markets or the neighborhood markets. Even that, we are further restricting the operations of those markets. We are saying that the markets cannot operate 7 days a week. We are asking that they be restricted even in their operations to every other day and within a particular segment of the day, from 10 to I think 2 p.m. 4 hours of operation should be enough, because those markets are supposed to serve the purposes of the purchase of foodstuff and grocery. You don't need more than 4 hours to walk to a neighborhood market. All the neighborhoods in this state, in FCT and most of our states, are within walking distances of the residences of the people that live within that particular community. So I believe what we have done by the protocol that we've released yesterday, and upon which we are improving to release a final copy probably today or tomorrow, it is to further reinforce the positions of the two governors of Ogun and Lagos State and that of the Minister for the Federal Capital Territory. The last one I want to take is the issue of the National Grains Reserve. The question came in Hausa, but let me explain in English, then I will answer it in Hausa. Mr. President, very categorically in paragraph 49 of his speech, said that he acknowledges the pains of the communities, the satellite communities in these 3 locations, and that everything will be done to ameliorate those hardships and pains by way of giving them support. And the first step he has taken is to authorize that from our strategic grains or food reserve, which is held by the federal government to be used in terms of national disasters like this, a certain portion of it be released. And yesterday I was very, very clear that we are starting with the 3 states, 2 states and federal capital that have officially been prescribed in terms of restrictions of movement. About 6,000 tons will go to them. But he has approved on a blanket, because we have to extend this to some frontline states, in addition, in a total of 70,000 tons of different grains, from maize, sorghum, gari, wheat, millet. These are the current things that are held in the National Strategic Grains Reserve. It is from there we will take to make sure that a cushion is provided for the people that have already been segregated by the Ministry for Humanitarian Affairs and in direct relation to the activities of NEMA. We already have a system. They already know the households. They already have a certain percentages of their calculation as to the portions or rations that should go to different families. So these things are all worked out. They are scientifically based and they are worked out. And once they begin to deploy, you will have evidence of that deployment in first the 3 locations and thereafter to some frontline states. Thank you. I forgot about Hausa. Tambayan da aka yi shine akan cewa shugaban kasa ya ba da izini a yi amfani da ton 70,000 na kayan abinci. Gaskiya ne, haka ne, shugaban kasa ya ba da umarni, ya ba da kuma zarafi akan cewa tabbatar an raba ba mutane talakawa waɗannan abincin. Amma za mu fara da Lagos, da Ogun, da Abuja. Bayan shi kuma akwai waɗansu jihohi waɗanda ake ce da su front line state za a je kansu. Na tabbatar a nan ba da daɗewa ba don an ci gaba in wannan ambaliya ɗin ya ci gaba a ƙasar nan kusan kowace jiha za ta samu wannan gudumawa. Wannan abinci ne wanda gwamnati take saya ta ajiye don irin wannan lokaci. Don an samu ambaliya irin wannan gwamnati sai ta fito da waɗannan kayan abinci don a taimakawa talakawa da taɓe a tsakaninmu su samu abin da za su ci. Ba wai zai biya bukata ba, amma taimako ne wanda suke zuwa daga hannun gwamnati don a tabbatar mutane ba su wahala sosai ba. Na gode.
Thank you very much. We now go into the second wave of questions. We have 7 persons lined up, and they will take the questions. Please make your questions very compact, not more than 2 at a time. Thank you.
My name is Mohammed Saliu Nazif. I work for Voice of Nigeria, specifically Fulfulde Service. I wish I could ask the question in Fulfulde, considering these briefings today that reflect the diversity of our country, which is beautiful. Mr. Chairman, members of the task force, my colleagues, I want to ask a question, 1 or 2 or 3 if time permits. My first question is, what is government doing, especially federal government, in reaching out to nomadic Fulanis who are in various bush and forest? And I ask this question because these people, or this category of people, they are borderless. And we always hear that considering the vast nature of our border, it's difficult for our personnel to man the border 24/7. We don't know what is happening at the other side of our border, whether their measures is like our measures. So I'm asking this question, is there anything government is doing towards reaching out to these people? Because they move with their animals, they don't stay in one place, they cross border and come back and go in, and they would portend a potential danger and even reduce the limit of effort government is making in containing this virus. Second question is, as the number increases instead of decreasing, I pray the number will decrease. What happened after 14 days? Is government considering extension of the lockdown and restriction movement? Then the third one is, earlier, the issue of allowing the local businesses at the community level to operate is fantastic. But there is a price hike. People are exploiting. As I'm talking to you now, if you go there, things that used to be 100 naira is 200, 250. Is there anything government doing, either through the Ministry of Information, to reach out these people to see that they bring this in? Because where they are getting those things, the price remains the same. But once they take it to the community level, they tell you it's COVID-19, COVID-19. Kind of making jest of the buyers. Thank you.
Ahambu Chinedum Chimezia, Radio Nigeria, Abuja. Ajunwe Diotwa. Ọtụtụ ndị mmadụ n'ala anyị ha na-atụ ụjọ dị egwu maka ọrịa bụ coronavirus n'ụzọ si amụba kwa ụbọchị n'ala anyị. Bụrụzie chibọ anụ ọzọ. N'ihi nke a, ha chọrọ ịga mee nyocha maka ịmata ma ha nwere ya bụ ọrịa ọjọọ a na-akpọ coronavirus. Mana nsogbu ha bụ amaghị oge ebe ha ga-aga mee nke ahụ. Tụmadị ndị mmadụ bi n'ime obodo anyị ha. Ajụ ha wee bụrụ si otu a wee dị. Na ọ dị oke mkpa itinye ngwa ndị ahụ eji eme nyocha n'ime steeti niile n'ala anyị. Tụmadị n'oge ụlọ ahụike niile dị na ime kansụl obodo anyị ha. N'ihi na ọ dị mma ka a chụọ nwa ewu ojii mgbe chi ejibeghị, maka chi jie ọ ga-enye nsogbu. Ndewonu.
Who is answering your question?
onye isi oche onye DG NCDC eji n'aka nwanne nwoke ọ ga-asị ya.
Orúkọ tèmi ni Òjó Suleiman láti iléeṣẹ́ rédíò Nàìjíríà Abuja. Ìbéèrè mi lọ sọ́dọ̀ ọ̀gbẹ́ni Rauf Arẹ́gbẹ́ṣọlá. À ń pè ọ́ lógí lówè ọ̀run laronú ebi èsì ìwọ́nú kọ̀rọ̀ mi ọ̀wọ́. A fún wa nínú ìwà fún ìrànwọ́. Àwọn tó wà ní ìgbèríko torí mínísítà tó wà fún ìtọ́jú ọmọnìyàn sọ lẹ́ẹ̀kan wípé wọ́n ti ṣètò bí wọ́n sì fẹ́ pín kínní ọ̀hún. Dádì mi wà nínú gbónígbó nínú rìsáàfù. Ọ̀nà wo ni kínní yóò gbà dọ́dọ̀ wọn? Àti pé kínní ìrètí wọn torí pé wọn ò ṣe pé à ń gbààwẹ̀ ohun tó dé lóní ká mọ̀ ẹ ṣé.
The chairman, COVID-19. My name is Adeni Ibakari. I work with Radio Nigeria. The first question I'm going to ask is going to the DG NCDC. The question that is on the Twitter and a lot of agitation is, do we have enough equipment and manpower to respond to COVID-19 cases in the country? Number two, the chairman has responded to this partly on the issue of 70,000 metric tons of grains. When is it going to start? Thank you.
Good afternoon, sirs. My name is Juliana Taiwo Baloyen. I write for the Sun newspapers. This question is for the NCDC DG. We just got a press statement from the Akwa Ibom State government. They are disputing that there's no COVID-19 cases in Akwa Ibom. They allege that there were irregularities in testing and reporting procedure, and the healthcare professionals in the state have been called to reconfirm the test to be done. So you might want to answer that. And to the SGF, sir, another development, the lockdown has turned ugly, according to reports in Delta State. A young man has been killed on his way to pick his dad to the hospital. I don't know if you are aware of that. And Nasarawa State government has also imposed 24-hour curfew. How come government and the subnational level seems to be working at cross purposes? Maybe you might want to reassure Nigerians or clarify. Thank you.
Good afternoon, sirs. Good afternoon, my colleague Rachel from the News Agency of Nigeria. My question is for NCDC. DG, I would like to know the modalities being used to share the Jackman gift for Nigerians to the 36 states. And I would also like to know the quality of testing kits that will be going to the 7 laboratories. And from news, we heard Oyo State Governor is trying to get testing kits for its people, that they have shortage. I don't know how NCDC will be able to address that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have come to the end of the second wave of questions. I will now invite the Director General, NCDC, to please respond.
Thank you. I'll respond in reverse order of the questions. The first one was on the donations from the Jack Ma Foundation. These kits have been distributed. It's been announced here. We actually went further to put up on our website, on our Twitter handle, the exact states that got and what they got. So everything has gone round. None of those things are in Abuja anymore, apart from the lab reagents. So they've gone round to every state. Okay, every state government was asked to come and collect. their own part of this donation. So some of them we took to the states, mostly the liaison officers here in Abuja collected what was due to every state. So all of them have gone round. In terms of the quality of kits being used in the labs, it's exactly the same reagents that we use in Abuja that are being used in every lab we activate. We go there, we activate them if they're ready. So both Ibadan and Abakaliki that have just been activated use exactly the same PCR kits that we use here in Abuja. So there's no difference in the quality of reagents being distributed to every new lab. A lot of governors are very anxious about new labs. But the honest truth is you can't build a new lab overnight. And the example I like to give is a power plant. It takes time. So right now we have a process to get samples to the network of labs. We're increasing the network every day, so making the distance shorter. So the key thing is not do I have a lab or not. The key thing is can my samples be tested or not? And that is the second question that we are answering. You can see that we have cases confirmed in 15 states now. We don't have labs in 15 states. So what we do is take those samples to the labs where we have them and make sure we get the results back to the labs as quickly as possible. I just read the press release of my brother, the Honorable Commissioner for Health in Akwa Ibom State. I think it's a little bit unfortunate. There was some delay in reporting the results to him because the team that leads the lab where these tests were done, were actually on their way to Abuja to carry out an important national assignment. These tests, and I'll say it publicly, were done in the Irua Specialist Teaching Hospital. This is our oldest and most experienced lab in carrying out PCR diagnosis. So there's really no reason to dispute the validity of these results. We must focus on the challenge at our hands. Every new case in a new state always leads to a little bit of anxiety, and people need time to accept that these results are what they are. But they are what they are. I have no reason to doubt the results coming out of any of our labs, and especially the Irua Specialist Teaching Hospital. Yes, they'll be tested at a specific time. After every positive case, we would retest anyway after 3-4 days, because the only way you can know whether people are recovering or not is by retesting them. So that will be done. But I think now, and like I have said over and over, and as the chair of the PTF has said, this is not a time to dispute and doubt, especially within government. It is a time to come together. It is not a time to release press statements against other government bodies. It is a time to come together. And so this is really my appeal to every state. There's no reason why anybody would give results without verifying. We're working very hard to make sure these results are correct. Sometimes we delay in releasing these results and we get a lot of flack. Why are the results taking so long? It's because the test is being repeated so that we can be very sure. But if there's one lab in Nigeria that I can almost be 100% sure on the validity of their test, of course there might always be mistakes, but to have mistakes in 5 results in a lab like Irua will be very unlikely. So I'd like to call on everyone across all the states in Nigeria to have confidence in the work that we're doing. And we're not doing this in NCDC. Irua is not an NCDC-owned lab. It's a lab that we support and make sure that the testing is done appropriately. So back to the first question, which was in Igbo. Ihe Jeromo test anyị na-eme ile ma ndị mmadụ nwere ọrịa anyị na-ekwu maka ya ka ihe mere onye ọbụla anaghị enweta ya nke ihe mere na ọwụhụ na obodo niile n'obodo anyị ka anyị nwere ike inwetanwu ihe eji ele ma mmadụ nwere ọrịa ma onweghị ya. Anyị na-agbalị si ike ka anyị meghee ụlọ ọgwụ a ka e nwee ebe a na-ele ma mmadụ nwere ọrịa na obodo niile n'obodo anyị. Kama anyị agaghị emenwu ya site taa ruo echi. Anyị ga-eji nwayọọ. So ebe ọbụla anyị meghere ya ka obi ruo anyị ala n'ebe ahụ ọ na-eme ihe o kwesịrị ime. So biko nwee ndidi ka anyị jiri nwayọọ rụpụtacha ụlọ a nwayọọ nwayọọ ka o ruo onye ọbụla. But ihe dị mkpa ebe ọbụla anyị mere test a ka ahụ na emetere ya ọfụma. Ọ wụghị ihe niile ka a na-eme ọsịsọ. A ga-eji nwayọọ nwayọọ ka anyị mee arụ ụlọ shike. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll take the Minister of Interior and the Chairman PTF will round up.
Thank you. Ohun tí alàgbà tí ó wá láti rédíò Nàìjíríà béèrè ni pé báwo ni kí lè ètò tá à ń ṣe fún àwọn tó wà ní ìgbèríko. Bó tó ní kí n sọ lédè Yorùbá níbẹ̀ kí là ń ṣe fáwọn tó wà ní ìgbèríko. Olùdarí iléeṣẹ́ ìjọba tó wà fún ìtọ́jú àwọn èèyàn àti ètò àánú nígbà ìṣòro ó ti sọ fún wa wípé wọ́n ti ní àkọsílẹ̀ gbogbo àwọn tí ó kù díẹ̀ káàtó fún ní orílẹ̀-èdè Nàìjíríà. Ohun tó kàn ó dẹ̀ ka àwọn ìpínlẹ̀ àti àwọn oyè agboolé tí wọ́n ti tó wà nínú àkọọ́lẹ̀ yìí. Kò lè parí ẹ̀ torí pé tó bá dé kò ń kà tán á gbà kókó. Tá a bá lọ sí wẹ́bsáìtì iléeṣẹ́ tí mò ń sọ yìí a máa rí àwọn ìpínlẹ̀ yìí ń bẹ àti àwọn tí ó lẹ́tọ̀ọ́ fún àánú àti ìrànlọ́wọ́ ìjọba. Kò sí bí àkókò ṣe lè nira tó kí a má ní ìgbà tí a ti máa dra wa nú. Orin kan wà tí mo fẹ́ kọ fọ́kùnrin yẹn lédè Yorùbá ó ní à ń jayé lóko bí àwọn ìjòyè ní o à ń jayé lóko bí àwọn ìjòyè ní orí ọ̀kẹ́rẹ́ orí àparò kòkò lórí yan tìyín lọ́fun à ń jayé lóko bí àwọn ìjòyè ní. Tó bá di pé ara abúlé ò bá lè jẹun mọ́ wàhálà dé o. A lè sọ pé à ń gbọ́ ètò ti àjàkálẹ̀ àrùn yìí ká wá gbàgbé yí pé ara oko ló mú oúnjẹ wálé o. Wọ́n ní gbà fún gbàdà nílé òun ni gbà fún gbàdà lóko o. Tí a bá ra búrẹ́dì lọ fún gbàdà lóko gbàdà ò ní mú iṣu wálé o. Ó yà mí lẹ́nu wípé àwọn ará abúlé náà ti ń sọ wípé tíjọba bá ràn wọ́n lọ́wọ́ wọn ò ní jẹun. Ẹ jọ̀ọ́ a fẹ́ fi àkókò yìí sọ fún gbogbo àwọn èèyàn wa wípé iṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀ níṣẹ́ ilẹ̀ wa o. Má jáde kò ní kí ẹni tó fẹ́ lọ sóko má lọ sóko. Ààrẹ wa sọ fún wa wípé ìséde yìí o kò mú àwọn tó ń ṣiṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀ o torí a lè wá febi para wa torí pé à ń sá fún lùkúlùkù. Mo bẹ̀ wá mo dẹ̀ rọ̀ wá o àwọn tó wà ní ìgbèríko ẹni tó dúkọ̀ ẹ bá wà nínú àkọọ́lẹ̀ fún àwọn tó fẹ́ ìrànlọ́wọ́ ìjọba tó ń dẹ̀ ní ẹ̀tọ́ àti gbà wọ́n máa rí gbà níbikíbi tó bá wà. Ṣùgbọ́n o ẹ má jẹ́ àfiṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀ ṣeré. Oúnjẹ ó ṣe pàtàkì, oúnjẹ ó ṣe kókó. Ẹ jẹ́ káwọn àgbẹ̀ wa kàn fi àkókò yìí tẹra mọ́ iṣẹ́ àgbẹ̀ wọn torí àwọn ni ó máa jẹ́ àgbójúlé wa lẹ́yìn gbogbo nǹkan tá à ń sọ yìí o. Ohun tí mo ní kí n wí fún wa nìyẹn ṣe o.
Much. I now invite the chairman of the PTF to respond.
Well, the first question here that I took note of is, what is government doing about the Fulanis who cross borders? Well, that is a very, very serious issue because as they move around, sometimes they go in search of pastures across borders. It's a major challenge. We will look at that and begin to address it. But that also comes to one fundamental issue that has been a very, very topical issue in the last 1 or 2 years as to whether we needed to make provision of land in our constituencies so that we can domesticate this nomadic posturing. From one issue is dovetailed into different issues. I know that there's currently an ongoing initiative which is being driven by the Office of the Vice President, the National Livestock Transformation Program. And some states have subscribed to that program where they would commit some certain hectareage of land in their constituencies for the creation of reserves where facilities will be provided for these nomadic families to reside within a contained area. If we eventually get that done, this kind of issues will not arise. So as a nation, we must be holistic in our approach going forward so that we can cater for each and every one. I acknowledge that, yes, as long as they cross borders, they create a problem for tracking, for infection, because our neighboring countries are not isolated from this pandemic right now. The reports we are getting is that some of the infections that have surfaced, not confirmed though, from Akwa Ibom and some of the ones that might begin to show across the eastern flank would be as a result of people crossing just on foot across from other borders into our domain. The Minister for Interior will be looking at that to see how we can enforce those closures on the land borders through the established designated outlets and also the porous areas that we have not been able to cover with facilities to restrict movement across the borders. You know, we come from a long history of relationship with our neighbors that have shifted over the years, either through legislation or through court judgments. That has made substantially a long stretch of our borders to be porous and communities live across each other. That is an accident of history that we must live with, but we must find solutions for that. The other question is the issue of what is government doing about profiteering. Government cannot do anything about profiteering. And that is a negative spirit that we have as a people, that in the midst of crisis, we want to maximize our profit. I know that we have this compassion or compassionate spirit as Nigerians, but sometimes we also have this exploitative spirit that will take advantage of crisis in order to maximize our profit. But the Nigerian person, as an individual, has this compassion to care for his brother or his sister. But when it comes to business, the exploitative spirit too manifests itself like coronavirus manifests itself. So there's nothing government can do about it. I remember during the times of Ebola, there was Ebola prize. During the times of polio, they have a way, the local traders, the local businessmen have a way. But I think we are only appealing to their conscience that this is not the time for exploitation. This is the time for us to show compassion. If it is not going to affect your profit, so much. You can even reduce the price like government is doing with petroleum products. We came from 145 to 25 or thereabout. We've come down to 123. So government is doing its bit. Is doing its bit in this regard to ensure that at least as the prices are falling internationally, correspondingly, instead of government to maintain its earlier position, it has decided to drop so that it can really soften the effects of the hardships that Nigerians are being confronted with. So my appeal is that we must be compassionate, we must be our brother's keepers, that this is not time for exploitation. It is a time of giving so that we can collectively be able to survive this current situation. The other question has to do with governments in different states putting up restrictions, some imposing curfew and the rest of it. For now, the president in his wisdom decided to test run the effect of the restriction of movement in 3 locations. But you also have to concede to the fact that subnationals, by the effect of the Quarantine Act, also have responsibilities. And I know that some state governors had convened their State House of Assemblies and have gotten them to allow them to sign the same declaration that Mr. President did. So the state governors imposing certain restrictions under the law have the right to do that. I won't question why they decide to impose curfew, because it is within their prerogative to do that as governors of their states. They must have taken so many things into consideration. Probably nightlife in those states is the height of mingling of persons, and they feel strongly that if they can just impose a curfew so that they slow down their populations, because it is the moving around and mixing that would accelerate community transmission. If we can just slow down and allow the officials of the Center for Disease Control and other health agencies moving and track and trace and perform tests, we will be able to contain this pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we close this national briefing, I just wish to inform you, especially those watching us and listening to us from home, that we have been supported by NAPTIP, that provided the sign language, and we have been reaching you in English, Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, Fufude, French, and Arabic on the platforms of the following stations: the NTA, the FRCN, Voice of Nigeria, Channels, AIT, TVC, Arise TV, and Kaduna Network Center for Hausa listeners, as well as the News Agency of Nigeria. We thank you very much for sharing this time with us, and we look forward to joining you again tomorrow at 2 p.m. Thank you.